And go live. Hey, everybody, you're on Lunch Conversations with Randy and Teddy. For those who don't know, I would be the Randy and I would be the Teddy, and Randy is my sidekick. He's on here as well. I just want to first thank the elder law firm for being our sponsor. The elder law firms in Greensboro, North Carolina. They're committed to helping you help your loved ones as they transition into estate planning and elder care planning. If you have a need for those kinds of conversations, if you have a curiosity about what that's all about, look for the elder law firm in Greensboro, North Carolina. Their phone number is 336-396-4551. And again, we're appreciative of them being a sponsor of the Lunch Conversations of Randy and Teddy. Randy, there's extra people on the show today, man.
We had to move the chairs around to accommodate everybody. So I don't know about your screen, but I've got side by side and the chat area.
Cool.
So Randy Wooden with Goodwill Industries of Northwest North Carolina. I run our professional center when I'm not jockeying keyboards and mice and a microphone in front of me. But we help professionals with a job search. And if you're so inclined to look for a new job, or you know somebody that might be, our services are free. Just find me on LinkedIn. We're happy to help. We work by appointment. Clients all over the galaxy. Teddy, they're all over the place.
Yeah,
I mean, it's amazing with the reach that we have with this show.
Do you still have the Lear Jet, or are you back down in the Cessna?
No, I got it. I got it parked out back by the four-wheeler. So yeah.
Hey, we've got my turn. For those who don't know me, I'm Teddy Burriss, and I own a company called Burriss Consulting, teaching LinkedIn as a business tool and Google Workspace and Gmail as business tools as our newest division. Having a blast teaching people how to use these tools. I get around, I do this work all over the country, even in downtown Winston-Salem early next week. That's the first time I've been downtown Winston-Salem doing a show in a long time. So, but anyway, Randy and I get together every week, a couple times. If you haven't found us on Mondays, you need to hunt us down on our Monday show. We get a little bit wilder on those shows, because here we got to get a little serious, because we bring really good conversations that can help people. And our special guests today are Debi Reynolds and Ryan Wilcox, both from Marsh McLennan Agency out of the Triad. Marsh McLennan's I think national firm, or a pretty big company, but they're represented in High Point and Greensboro. And Debi and Ryan will have a conversation mostly with Randy today. So I'm gonna hand it back to you, buddy.
Yeah, and if you're watching and you have a question or comment for either Ryan or Debi, please put it in the chat area. That's where Teddy has the eagle eye and will keenly observe your comment and work those in. So yeah, let me clarify now. You guys had been, because we kicked around this name before, so it's Marsh McLennan Agency, but wouldn't it done part of that, just for folks in the local area who might not know the name Marsh McLennan? Is it done that they might know you by?
It could be, yeah. We've been done since 1927, and then in 2014 we merged with Marsh McLennan Agency and joined the national kind of organization with other agencies that were like ours. So while done is still the same people here locally, we are under Marsh McLennan Agency as a name. So one and the same here locally, as people do remember done still.
Well, we've got two guests here, so I want to ask both of you to introduce yourself. We'll go ladies first, but Debi, I've known you for probably close to 20 years, it seems like, through SHRM, and just being involved with some of the same activities. So, and also, the mom to a 2-year-old. So you've got your hands full. So tell a little bit more about what you do over there, Debi.
Well, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here with Teddy and Randy Lunch Conversations.
Oh, wait, no, we got to stop you. Hang on. No. You didn't get the memo. It's Lunch Conversations with Randy and Teddy. Just so you know, just to set the record straight.
I stand corrected. Lunch
my agent back there Agent Orange, he said, make sure you put that in.
Yeah. And,
So,
and,
yeah.
and I
I've been
said, I'm not
tuning
going
in.
to pay you any more money because you got first billing, dude.
I think it was a flip of a coin. I don't know how that came about. Anyway, I digress. So
Well,
please
I
continue.
digress too, Randy. Well, thanks for having me on Lunch Conversations with Randy and Teddy. I too have been tuning in off and on during this pandemic, and thank you for having me. My name is Debi Reynolds, and someone in the chat said, great name, and I'm assuming the reference to Debi Reynolds, the movie star, not Debi Reynolds, HR consultant with Marsh McLennan Agency. But yes, I get a little bit of name recognition because of the similarity. But I'm an HR consultant. I joined MMA almost 4 years ago. And I serve and support small and medium-sized businesses with or without a human resource professional. So clients can reach out to me or outsource projects or HR functions to me as needed. But again, I work with clients on benefit administration questions, recruiting questions, employee relations, and compliance, to keep them out of trouble. And I've been doing this for almost 20 years. So the fact that I have a toddler that is almost 3 years old is a little bit of a miracle, but a wonderful miracle for our family.
Absolutely. All right,
Now,
Ryan,
Debbie,
you're
if
up.
you're confused about how that miracle works, let Randy and I know. We can help you understand that.
Because I'm not going to share my age. It's a little bit of a miracle.
I'm with you.
Hey, Ryan, tell us about yourself and what you do there and sort of what the relationship is that you have along with Debbie as it relates to clients.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. So Ryan Wilcox with Marsh McLennan Agency. I'm Vice President of Employee Health and Benefits. So I stand in a consulting role in working with clients all across North Carolina and South Carolina, really mid-Atlantic region on top of that, to strategize and come up with a long-term solution to their employee benefits program. And I will tell you that conversation changes every day. A lot of new concepts and programs coming up in the marketplace. But our goal is to help clients keep their benefit program cost containment, keeping it as low as they possibly can to be able to attract and retain employees. And I've been doing this for about 14 years. I'm a native of Winston-Salem and have 3 beautiful girls, 10, 7, and 4. So excited to be with you guys. So thank you very much for having us.
Great. So if I'm understanding, then Debbie, you are what I'll call the point of contact with an organization. And while you have a lot of knowledge in the benefits area, you're also an HR generalist. So you're, in my layman's terms, you're also a bit of a funnel then. So if they need somebody who is a specialist or an expert in a certain part of the HR landscape, then you bring in those resources. And Ryan is the resource as it relates to the benefits. Is that Absolutely. A fair way to put it?
That is a fair way to put it.
Okay.
If a client has questions specific to workers' compensation, risk management, I direct them, and we have a support team of specialists, and the same for employee benefits. If a client has questions about plan designs, they're considering some changes in the next open enrollment period, or they're looking to make some other significant changes, that's where I would rely on a benefit specialist like Ryan.
Got it. And there's a lot to HR, a lot of things that are changing due to COVID and regulations and so forth. So we're trying to get up to date on stuff. And so if you're wondering, so what are we going to cover today? Benefits for a lot of folks, it's, I don't want to say boring, but I think confusing is probably more to the point. Everybody hopes to get health insurance and whatever. But some of the things we want to talk today, and if you have comments or questions, put that in the chat. If you're watching us live on Facebook or LinkedIn, chat them in there as well, and we'll hopefully be able to nail some of those. But topics such as what are some innovative benefits that companies have brought out of the closet, so to speak, to offer in order to retain and attract talent? I mean, it's competitive out there. So what are some new things coming down the pike? Also, if I'm an employer and I want to be, even if I'm not all that innovative, what do I need to do to at least not lose ground? What are some common or commonly accepted? And if you don't have it, candidates may look at you and go, it's not good. Also, we'll talk about corporate culture and how benefits can play into that. There's a big trend toward mental health as opposed to just, slap a Band-Aid on it and, get you back to work, but also what's between the ears too, as well. And so we'll cover some of that and just other unique perks that maybe we may see coming down the pike. If you're a hiring official and you're curious and want to learn more, you can reach out to Debbie and she can get you in touch with the resources that you'll need. But before we kind of launch into this, I always ask the why question. And so, Debbie, we'll start with you. You said over 20 years or so in HR. What's the why for you? What got you down this path and has kept you chugging along all these years?
Well, there's a lot to my why. However, I'll keep it simple, and I'll just say that in my experience, it has both to be able to assist an employer and also the ability to empathize and assist and support employees. It's actually balancing that, because I thought about this in preparation of this meeting, how sometimes HR gets a bad rap, both either from the employees thinking that all we care about are rules and regulations and policing employees, and also from a company standpoint that maybe we're too much of an employee advocate. So there really is a balance to make sure that we're doing both to satisfy and also be legally compliant with laws, but also to be able to empathize and assist an employee actually benefits everybody. A happy, productive employee benefits customers, the company, your coworkers. It makes for a much more pleasant work environment.
I know Teddy is, trying to always keep me on board. He's throwing money at me left and right and trying to improve my work culture and everything else. And so, Teddy, thank you for that. I appreciate that.
Hey, buddy, I care. Did you get that care box I sent you on Valentine's Day?
It's in the mail.
I'm sorry, Randy. Never mind. It was for somebody else.
Somebody else. Yeah. Hey, Ryan, what's your why? You've been at this thing, what you said, 16 years, something like that? How?
Right, yeah, pretty close to 15, so not too far off. And I will tell you, I think when I stop and think about that question, which is honestly a little bit of a difficult question when you stop and think about it, but at the same time, it's my position and my support that I provide to an organization for one of their largest cost items. I think when you really peel away the onion of a group and their budget and what a company has available. Number one, the employees are what make a company great. And companies really have to strategize and come up with that solution to attract and retain employees. And so my support and my consulting allows me to do that. And I will say every day is something new. There is not one day that is exactly the same, which is a great thing for me. And I like working with different industries. I am not segmented into one specific industry. I do focus a lot in the education space with colleges, universities, K through 12 schools, et cetera. But at the same time, it just allows me to engage with executives and owners of businesses to be able to come up with a long-term solution and strategy for their company. And a lot of times companies get blocked into that annual view where they look at the benefits as a 12-month program, but it's really our job to expand that out to a 5-year strategy, 10-year strategy, et cetera. And so we really get to partner with a group and become a consultant rather than just a vendor, and we become an extension of their organization. And that to me keeps every day pretty interesting.
We're seeing some comments and questions in the chat box. So let me tee it up. And the big thing I think people wonder about is with this great resignation going on. And so if you're watching and you're a candidate and you're saying, what are some new things coming down the pike? But also if you're employed or hiring manager or business owner, what are the other guys doing? What are some things that companies have found to be effective to attract and retain talent during this time frame, this great resignation? What are some of the new shiny objects we're seeing coming up?
Debbie, you want to go first?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me get started by saying that we're hearing a lot about this
I bet.
on a daily basis, both from various companies, industries. I mean, it's not just one industry. It's not just one type of company. Everybody is having these struggles. I mean, everywhere from the fast food industry all the way to construction. And even yesterday, someone, even now with the, I'm going to lose my train of thought, the essential workers.
Yeah.
The essential workers who haven't had the luxury of staying home, have had to work and keep it going. They're burnt out. So they're really looking for what's out there. To answer your question, Randy, I would say it's a little bit of everything all across the spectrum, from paid time off. What does that look like? I mean, for Teddy, he has unlimited paid time off, but for the rest of us, it's usually based on how long you've worked there. And it's usually you get more time off the longer you stay, and they reward you by giving you more paid time off. But now, I mean, it's everything. People want more flexibility. What does that look like? That may look like a flexible schedule. It may more autonomy over your work, when you work and how you work, whether you work from home or a hybrid option, going back into the office. Not everybody wants to work in the office, and not everybody wants to work at home either. So I like the balance of a hybrid work option where you have some flex time, maybe working in the office 1 or 2 days or working from home a couple days a week. But we're just seeing everything from, from nice incentives and perks. Used to, we could look at and think about, oh, that's a nice perk, a gym membership, or voluntary benefits, where you have all these options that whatever is important to you or resonates with you and your family. Someone mentioned pet insurance. If you don't have children, or you have, fur babies, then pet insurance could be an important benefit to you. And I'll let Ryan jump in. He may have some thoughts.
I want to throw something in here too, because I can. Teddy, it's okay, right? I can do that. All right.
You can.
This comes up. I see this on LinkedIn from time to time. People ask questions about this as a benefit. So let's say, let's take Goodwill as an example. I work for Goodwill here in Winston-Salem. Where I'm going with this is if a company, so take Goodwill out of it, but just say a company, if they say, look, we will hire people from, it doesn't matter where they live because it's a remote job. But let's say the job, if you were local and had to go into the office in Winston-Salem, would pay $50,000. Let's just say. Are companies looking at that and saying, well, okay, this job is paying $50,000. And if you can do it anywhere, are you also saying, okay, if somebody in San Francisco gets hired, $50,000, you can't even buy a sandwich. For $50,000. So are companies being, I guess, more flexible in terms of compensation based on the cost of living where their people work? And then to take it another level, what if they're in another country and the cost of living in that other country is minuscule compared to here? So are companies looking at compensation as a benefit based on where you live, or are they saying, no, this is what the job pays locally? How do you guys decipher all that?
No, I think you kind of hit a unique situation, especially as it's growing today with the ability to work remotely. I think we were forced, when the pandemic hit, to come up with new ideas and strategies. So to answer your question specifically, I would say yes, they're having to look at those different options. At the same time, it is opening up the communication with new people to interview with jobs and to kind of open up that pool to a larger number of people. So it's getting more competitive on top of that. But I think the biggest question behind all of that is culturally, how is that going to fit into an organization? And I think, working remotely, et cetera, is going to be a very unique environment that we're looking at going forward. And so while pay is a large part of it, and yes, they are looking specifically at regional pay differences, et cetera, I think it's coming down to companies looking at their internal policies very different, because you're not just a brick and mortar building anymore where you can, build a gym or have a childcare facility in the first floor that everybody can join in on and participate with. You're having to come up with very unique strategies to be able to engage these people that are working remotely. So I think it's increasing the pool, making it more competitive, but at the same time, they're having to be careful where those individuals live to be able to make sure that their pay is competitive with the job and responsibility. I'll say this specifically to our company as a national firm. We have the ability to look at other, details on a national level. What are those, pay grades, et cetera, related to industries? And so it gives us a little bit of a national footprint where we can engage an office in that particular state, et cetera. So it is a new trend. It's a new concept that's having to come into play more so now than it ever has before.
Yeah. Interesting. Teddy, you want to tackle a question or two from the chat area?
Dean asked, what perks are companies providing to their employees who are working remote? And I told him a story in the chat that I know personally of a large tobacco company, name not to be disclosed, that they put together a program to send their employees a remote worker gift box a couple times a year. And the employees didn't expect this. And all of a sudden they get this, the first one was this huge box of all this, what you call cha-cha or, swag that, all branded and stuff they could use. It wasn't just, here's a bunch of coffee cups. And I actually talked to one of the employees, a young lady that works for this company. And she said when she opened that box, she was practically in tears because it was clearly a compassionate give that showed those employees they cared. Pretty cool little exercise. Have you seen anything like that?
Absolutely, Teddy. And Ryan and I can both attest from our experience just how we've received those types of unexpected packages, whether it's one was, I don't know what we called it, Ryan, where we got masks and water bottles.
Just a new pandemic
care package, pandemic care package with lots of things we could actually use. We also got, from cookies to ice cream, 6 pints of ice cream from this fabulous company. And I can tell you, my little girl was all over that.
I bet.
But to answer his question regarding those remote meetings, DoorDash gift cards. That way you can order what lunch you want in your area, something to that effect. Yeah. But yes, tons of unique and thoughtful gifts and things that can be delivered to someone's home who's working remotely.
Yeah, there's a promo company I know who snagged on a really cool product for corporations of remote workers, where they created a really simple breakdown, rebuild backdrop. So it's a curtain, that is, just, it's not really, it was very small branded, similar to Marsh McLennan on right, but it's just a really cool backdrop. And so they don't need to use, the virtual backdrop. They got one that they can move around their house, whenever they want to move around, just something different. That's the magic, I think, something different.
There's been, I'll jump in here real quick. There's been some, and it's obviously grown very quickly over the last couple of years, just because of a lot of people working remotely, but having an allowance or some type of work from home budget that everybody has to work for. Now, there's certain criteria and things that you can and can't purchase from that. And even organizations will restrict you from getting things that maybe don't meet that criteria. But just having the ability to get that support from an organization is making people feel appreciated. Those small gestures, whether it's just a quick lunch from home, or whether it is that care package, or whether it's a reward program that they're implementing, the swag is always good. You wonder, everybody has this type of things laying around, but we had the opportunity internally to go to a store. They kind of set a budget, and you can go to a store and you have certain points that you can spend. And so I think those types of things are making individuals feel appreciated. And when there is a disconnect within that brick and mortar feeling culturally within an organization, there's having to get creative. And those types of things, to your point, when you open that box and you say, the time and effort that was taken to be able to send that out to, however many employees you have at your organization, that means a lot. And those are things that have never really been high on the priority list, and they have bubbled up to the surface very quickly. And it keeps that engagement with an individual that you don't pass in the hallway.
I forgot to share one of the pieces that was in that package. It was a personal handwritten note from the senior level manager of the department that this young lady worked for, not her direct boss, senior level management in that department. And by the way, this went out to, it's 4 digits, the number of people this went out to. It was in the thousands. A whole lot of effort, not just dollars, but effort for the senior level managers to touch all their people.
Yeah, and Teddy, you mentioned dollars. That leads me to another point. And there's the cost benefit to this thing. And it's nice to offer benefits. It's sort of like when the internet got started and social media. The people writing checks at companies, they said, "This is playtime. This is play stuff. Where's our return on investment?" And the same, I would look at it this way too. If I'm cutting a check for these benefits, have studies been done to show how this impacts retention, how it impacts attracting, new folks, or is this just feel good stuff? Have you put numbers? Have you crunched numbers on this thing to really see what the return on investment is, depending on the type of benefit that might be offered?
So I'll jump in here and just mention my brief thoughts, and then Debbie, you can add on to it. But I heard a number, so I don't have the exact number of budgeting on what exactly people are spending and what their return on this is, because I think it is still fairly new where they're trying to figure it out a little bit. But all of this has been sped up. If you think about benefits in general, and you even mentioned this at the beginning, benefits have not traditionally been this exciting conversation. It's almost been one of these things that individuals might expect when they join an organization. And it's a topic of conversation, but it really hasn't been a priority. And I think that's changed a lot just because of potentially that kind of decline in some loyalty related to organizations. And about 30%, I saw this number the other day, 30% of employees don't make it past their first year. And when you think about investing that amount to an individual, I mean, that can get really expensive and just kind of go out the window. And so I think when we, and as consultants, and Debbie and I spoke about this, we have to be very careful with what we are implementing, and whether it's a new benefit that you're going to spend, on everybody, or it's a gesture or one of those care packages, whatever it is, you want to make sure that what you're doing is going to resonate and give people the tears in their eyes, et cetera. And so what we have really started doing with our clients is engaging in probably more surveys than anybody wants to do. But at the same time, when there's a remote working situation and you're not always right there with people to have a raise of hands, you kind of ask what people are looking for. And I think what you find on a return of investment, Randy, to your question is, if you're focusing specifically on the items that your group seems to be interested in, whether it's regional or whether it's industry type, and you focus on that from hearing from your employees, it builds a much better program or strategy in the end. And so I think you're hearing a lot of companies that are spending their time doing that research to try to get to that number you're talking about. But rather than just shooting from the hip or throwing any ideas out there, they're really trying to narrow it down to a specific item. And is that going to resonate with our people?
Yeah, and of course, companies with larger budgets can spend more and such. I know, Teddy, we're approaching the half hour. Do you want to do the break now, and then we can dive into some more?
I need to talk to my boss about this stuff. You really got me thinking. Hey, you're on Lunch Conversations with Randy and Teddy, and we want to again thank our sponsors. The Elder Law Firm is sponsoring this show, and who's important to you and how you plan to honor them and the responsibilities you have to them is also important to the Elder Law Firm. So if you have elders in your family that you're involved with and you want to help them with the right kind of estate planning, the right kind of protection as they move through their life, reach out to the Elder Law Firm. You have a great conversation with them, 336-396-4551. Randy, back to you, buddy. Good
deal. And I know we've got some questions. Teddy, you'll get to those here in a bit. Another area that I'd like to cover is, if I'm a candidate, and I hear this so often, well, they're going to pay me another $5,000 a year. I think I'm going to take this new job. Okay. Miss Reynolds, would you like to address the class?
Yes, I would. Yes, it sounds great. And a lot of times we do experience that where an employee has a job offer where they're going to make a little bit more money than their current salary. But I would caution them and recommend that they look at what we call in our world, total compensation.
Mm-hmm.
You have to really, it's not apples and apples, it's apples and oranges. You can tell it's lunchtime because I'm hungry. But most companies or HR folks can provide you with a total compensation statement of what you're currently earning, including all those benefits and perks and things you may not even realize that are available to you. That when you look at the big picture, maybe that other job that's going to pay you $5,000 more annually, when you factor in the cost of the benefits that you might have to pay for, you might actually come out without ahead, or even, oh no, I've made a huge mistake. My take-home pay now, after taxes and my benefit contributions, I'm actually bringing home less money. What did I do?
Yeah. Plus, you're moving into a new culture, a new company, and so there's that variable, that unknown. All right, but you said something that made me think for a second. I don't ever in my entire life, ever, and I've lived a long life, remember ever having an HR person break down, this is what these benefits cost the company, or this is what this benefit will mean to you. So is that something new? Have I just not been asking and I've missed out all these years? Or is it?
It's been around a while, but also consider, I don't want to get down into the whole Affordable Care Act, ACA, but you might not have even noticed on your W-2,
Yeah.
There's a box on there for health insurance, how much the company has contributed towards your health insurance.
Mm-hmm.
You might not even realize that number is on your W-2, but I don't want to go down that. I'll just say that with all the technology, especially if you're working for a company that outsources payroll, most of these organizations and these vendors have the ability, it's there, they can capture it and run it for you. Or if you have an employee login, you may not realize there's a report, a total compensation report available to you.
And also the benefits are not taxable. I would assume. I mean, if they're contributing to my insurance, health insurance, I don't have to pay tax on their contribution, do I?
I'll let Ryan answer those taxable questions.
There are some benefits that are taxable.
Correct. Yeah. There's some benefits that are taxable. If you're processing most of the benefits that normal organizations have, they are on a pre-tax type of deduction and all of that. And so there are a handful of benefits depending on how they are set up that can be taxable, but it really just depends on that particular benefit. And obviously every policy, et cetera, is a little bit different, that you need to make sure that you follow in that criteria. But I will say, you can do this on a virtual level, and then we've even been able to do it on a paper format. And it's very simply, when an organization sits down and kind of spells out each line item related to their benefits, there's ultimately a cost associated with that. And when you look at those costs and you lay out, and I think of it simply, a column for what the company pays and a column for what the employee is going to pay, whether they pay a portion of it or what have you with the particular benefit, then at the very bottom, it totals out, what is the company paying for the benefits? What am I paying for the benefits? And then when you add up what the company is contributing plus your income level, it kind of gives you that total compensation. I will also add that there's a little bit of a difficulty where some of these benefits are not easily, you can't easily put a dollar amount on them. And some of them are more policy than they are a specific, benefit that you can touch and feel, or a life insurance policy or anything like that. There's going to be more policies that companies set up that can also create more value than just a dollar amount. And so I think that's what a lot of people looking in the job market need to do is digest what is that income, what are the benefits, and then what are the extra things outside of that related to policy that I'm not seeing a dollar amount for, but I might actually be able to, feel better about working for this organization.
So
And
a follow.
I would like to say
Yeah.
one thing, Randy.
Yeah.
When you receive, or at least what I would always expect to receive in an offer letter, is some summary of your benefits, some type of idea, especially if they offer a comprehensive benefit package, and that they're also offering, to Ryan's point, policies that allow you, other perks and paid time off benefits, or those types of things they want to highlight so that they can attract you to come to them.
Sure. Hey, and I kind of know the answer, but then that would be my second mistake, is assuming that I knew that. Anyway, wondering about benefits for some, but not all in a company. And I'm sure there's some legal parameters as far as 401k, and there's certain things you can't just do certain things for senior management or for those who bother to ask about it, kind of thing. But are there negotiable ones? Are there ways to negotiate certain benefits, and what might those be? And if there's a strategy for doing it, tell us, please.
Well, there are some benefits that cannot be negotiated because
Asking for a friend.
There's rules, and I'll let Ryan talk about that. But in my experience, also, is if it's also smaller companies have the more discretionary ability to give you more paid time off or be more flexible with your schedule or things of that nature. Whereas much larger companies may have their hands tied. But there are some rules regarding certain benefits that they can't. Got to treat everybody the same so that there's not only no discrimination or favoritism, but to make sure that you're in compliance with the contracts that you have with those benefit providers.
What's negotiable? Yeah,
and I'll add just a couple of things. There are certain things. I mean, really, the lines that are drawn are related to specifically full-time workers, part-time workers, and there's maybe some benefits that are a little different according to those types of job titles, but or I guess amount of hours that you're working. But there's also, from a company perspective, to your point, there are some discriminatory things that you have to be careful of. You've got to keep things very standard across the board. You got to do things the same way for most people. And you kind of have to set those parameters, directly with how your organization is set up. There are some things related to group size that you might want to look into there. But, and I don't have anything specific that I think you can dive in to negotiate, but I think maybe some of the policies and things, let's be realistic. You can't say, hey, give me the medical insurance when you're a part-time employee. You have to kind of be the full-time employee for, a majority of groups. Some groups kind of have a little bit of a benefit for part-time employees, but it really kind of depends on that particular company and how they do that. So you have to make sure that the contracts are written the right way. And sometimes that limits what you're able to do and not do. But maybe, agreeing to, give you, grandfather you in, whether it's years worked, if you're buying a company and you're bringing on employees, giving them that tenure and things like that. There are some things related to that maybe you can engage in, but it's going to be specific to the company and the policies they have in place.
Yeah, Teddy?
In a previous life, I worked for companies where company cars were available, and I was fortunate I got a company car. Company American Express, a certain level of travel, and I got an American Express. I worked for companies where I had to turn in my expenses, and there was a certain amount of things I couldn't put on my expense report, like I couldn't pay for liquor or alcohol. But then when I got to another level in the organization and I started, engaging with higher level clients, that became less of an issue. But I'll tell you this, Ryan and Debbie, you probably know this clearly, the things that I was able to get, and some of them I asked for and I was given because they acknowledged I was at a level where the plan they had written for employee benefits allowed me to get that. It wasn't in this, and these were small companies. These weren't not big ones that, you know, if you don't have a plan, if an organization doesn't have a written plan of how they give benefits out, those kind of, you know, perks, that's how you get in trouble.
Absolutely. Policies are becoming a much bigger conversation now. Really, exactly like you said it. If you have a policy in force and you follow that policy, and it meets all the criteria that's needed, absolutely, you can do that. But a lot of people do this kind of on a whim and make those decisions, and that's where you do get in trouble.
I'll give Dean asked a question that I'll play with the story real quick. I didn't have a jet. I didn't have a Learjet, but I did work for a company many, many years ago that did have airplanes. And this is a company out of New Jersey. And if that airplane was going somewhere and I wanted to go, all I had to do was arrange for paid time off. And I could hop on the plane and go. So yeah, Dean, I've had that world.
Hey, I wanted to ask you a question. I know that companies are looking at creative ways to, again, attract and retain and such. And one that we hadn't really touched on is tuition reimbursement. So the whole education. And I get it from an internal training standpoint. We want to train you on policies and procedures and how to do your job and all that. I'm talking about if somebody wants to go out and get education, does it, first of all, does it have to be relevant to their role with the company? And, you know, how much is typically reimbursed, and are there parameters that you have to meet for that? Tax issues in it. Let's talk about tuition reimbursement just in general. Take it however you want to.
Debbie, I'll hit it first, and then you can add your thoughts in this. So, you know, obviously we all know that colleges, education, universities is continuing to get more expensive on the private level and public level. It's increasing at numbers that are out of our control. And with the kind of the cost of, and I was looking at this number, the cost of a business school, I think, is around $100,000. And I think a cost for another school roughly around $50,000, kind of to get through that business school type of part of it. And even outside of just the cost, it's the opportunity cost that's lost. You're spending time on education, you're having to take time away from work or home, et cetera. There's a lot of opportunity cost that's associated with that, but it kind of doubles those expenses. And so, you know, companies are trying to create this ability for an individual working at the company. And most of the time, it's not specific to certain levels. It's kind of available to most employees within that group. And maybe they have it set within a policy for these specific levels of employees. But it allows a company, and I think the IRS, and I'm almost positive about this, allows a company to deduct about $5,250 per year per employee as a deductible expense as a company for that. Now, I know some companies do more than that. Some are a little bit less than that, but they're trying to give money towards education for their individuals to be able to go back to school, et cetera. Maybe there's scholarships. I know that we even have that internally within our company, where there's a scholarship set up where the company can actually say vote or award an individual that has gone through a submission process a certain scholarship. And maybe that's an internal employee that goes through that. So it's a really neat concept. There isn't allowable for a company to do it. And it's, you know, giving them the chance to support an individual on, bettering their education.
Are there parameters as far as the nature of the training or the schooling? For example, I'm kind of in the HR career development realm, but if I wanted to take a class in accounting, that's out of my sandbox. But is education, or does it have to be pertinent to your field?
I think it depends on how you kind of set it up. I think you can, give it as a benefit and say, hey, we're allowing everybody up to this amount every year. You can kind of pick and choose how you want to use that amount, almost more of a reimbursement account type of concept. And so it doesn't necessarily have to be that. Now, some companies do change that mentality to more of a development, internal development process rather than external, going back to school, getting your master's, whatever that is. It might be more of a, job development type of process that they're engaged in, and that's specific to what they will do.
Lisa threw out the idea of companies allowing for paid LinkedIn so they can get access to LinkedIn Learning. And Lisa, I do know a company who does will pay the subscription for their any employee in the organization to have what's called business premium, so that they can get access to LinkedIn Learning. Now, what they ask is that they show the value they're getting from that, rather than just give them a year subscription and send them off on their way. Worst thing a company can do is, I think we used these words earlier, ROI, not give a perk to someone and see the benefits that they and the company are getting.
Correct.
Well, going back to what you said earlier, Teddy, a lot of it does have to depend on the company's policy. To Randy's point, it used to have to be specific to your industry, your profession. It had to tie into it, but now it doesn't. We've seen it really broaden and open up to benefit the employee, and it's open-ended. It could be associated with a dollar amount, that's the benefit, or even a learning development system internally that employees have access to, continuing to give them skills and resources to improve.
What's that meme that floats around the internet all the time, where a CFO asks the question to the CEO, hey, what would happen if we didn't pay for training? And the CEO says, I'm screwing the meme up, but basically he says, well, you know, what would happen to our company if we don't train our people?
And they stay.
Yeah.
And something that I'm hearing a lot about that's trending is even tuition reimbursements, or you know, if you have student loan reimbursements. If you've come out of school, let's even use an example of a nurse, someone coming out of nursing school and have all these college debts. There are companies that are offering to help them pay back those debts. So it's not just, I'm interested in continuing my education. It's helped me pay for the one that I have that's going to benefit you.
Yeah.
And I wonder too, this goes back into a bigger discussion about college versus trade schools, and, you know, reimbursing the government, reimbursing for education, but also what about the lease that they had to take out on a tractor or to start a plumbing business, and you know, all the cost inherent with that. And that's for another day, another topic. But it's interesting as we kind of look at how things have morphed a bit. We've got about 13 minutes left. I always like to ask summaries, so be thinking about some takeaways we want people to have. And I guess one thing that we hadn't really touched on, there's probably several here. We talked about corporate culture, and that's, how do you put a dollar amount on that? I don't know that there's an answer for that. Is that how do companies sort of measure culture and how that helps with retention? Is there a way to do that?
I think that culture to me is just the way who we are and the way we do things. Is kind of like a person's personality. It's the company's personality, and how the people that work there feel about it. And it is important. If you've ever worked anywhere where there was a very poor or dysfunctional, unhealthy culture, it can have significant ramifications. So I think that culture is important, that I want to be proud of where I work. I want to appreciate the people I work with and recognize them, because we spend so much time together. So yeah, I do think it's important. And there's even websites, and the one that comes to mind is Glassdoor. Go out there and do some homework. Just like if you're going to go out on a date with somebody, you might Google them. Go out there and Google that next employer.
I learned that. I learned that the hard way. Oh, never mind, Randy. Know the story.
Teddy, I know. Teddy, Ryan, you haven't been on our show before. Ryan, Debbie, you've watched a few times. Teddy has everything under the sun behind him. He's got a typewriter. He's got an old phone. He's got a phone directory, you know, like the paper book, all that stuff. But Teddy, don't you also have a crystal ball somewhere?
I do. And Randy, I'm working on this, buddy. I've got my crystal ball.
All right. So
I'm actually working on getting a bigger one, because I think there's more stuff out there I need to share with people. So
Teddy, please hold up that crystal ball. And I'm going to ask Debbie and Ryan.
I love it.
Blow the dust off. Well, you can do it that way too. Wipe the dust off. So give us your crystal ball as we look ahead and COVID becomes somewhat in the rear view mirror a bit. Where do you see benefits headed? Do you see things, trends, regulatory things coming down the pike from the feds and the state? What's that crystal ball look like? Then we'll ask you to summarize.
Well, I'll start. How about that?
Yeah.
So I would say
thank you, right?
Yeah.
That's what Debbie's saying. Thank you.
Companies that are companies that are taking the time to have this conversation internally are the ones that are going to come out of this feeling better, set up for the long term. And I think it's going to give a very clear picture to their current employees and new employees of what it looks like. I kind of think about this and not to point any names, but let's use a cable provider as an example, where, the bills continue to get more expensive and it keeps going up. And the only way to get those to change or to go down is to threaten to leave and to have those conversations and to, ultimately maybe leave and go to another company and come back. And I think that that's what companies don't want to have happen anymore. I think they really need to take the time to spend on looking at these benefits, not just from the normal benefits that you're thinking about, the medical insurance, the dental, the vision, the disability, whatever you want to call it, standard benefits. They have to think outside the box. And if you think outside the box, you are going to create an environment for employees where you're going to have people that want to stay there, and you're going to have new employees that come, and that just cultivates growth. And so if I'm picturing that, you could name mental health, family care, you were talking about it earlier, the elder care is a huge component, as the generations get older, and you in the workforce, you have your parents that need that support. You're seeing companies pay for benefits like that. So getting creative and sticking to that internal culture is going to be the way of the future. And you're going to see that very clearly in groups as you move forward.
I wonder too, the more companies that buy into or add these benefits, then costs go down, the more you have more participation you have, I would assume.
That's
costs
right.
can drop.
And I will say real quick, and then Debbie, you can jump in, but companies used to try to find out, well, how can I make the medical insurance cheaper? How can I really restrict this plan and do that? And I think you're seeing companies say, I'm funneling money from my budget into this type of area. And they're trying to enhance the benefits rather than maybe traditionally letting them sit on the back shelf, not really focusing on it. It's really becoming an area of pressure that they're needing to come up with.
Well, let's move to summarize. What are some takeaways you'd like people to have today? Debbie, you want to start? And I'll ask Ryan real quick, and then we'll move on.
Well, one of the things that I think is important is having a voice and having a company that will listen. So if your employer, or even if you're going through the interview process, if they ask you questions, answer them. Tell them what's important to you, what resonates with you, because how else are they going to know?
Yeah.
Taking a stab in the dark about all the different benefits that they can offer. It's important for employers to survey employees. That way they can focus their budget and their benefits on what their employees want and need. And I think the same is true if you're in an interview process and you're thinking about an employer. It is appropriate and in your best interest to ask the questions, to find out, will they negotiate, how much they'll negotiate. Can they provide you a summary of their benefits? Can they provide you a copy of their employee handbook so you can see all the paid time off, holidays, et cetera, whether they offer tuition reimbursement?
Oh, that's not.
Or one of my favorite benefits is an employee assistance program, an EAP, because it can offer a lot of different benefits based on the employee's needs and where they're at in their life. And it's completely confidential.
Teledoc's another one, the telephone visits, so you're not incurring the cost of the office visit. Teddy, you had a comment, a question?
I know, I'm with Debbie. I think more organizations are realizing they need to be transparent with the package that they're going to provide an employee. Because if you're not transparent on what that package really looks like, you're missing the opportunity to get people to go, oh, they have pet insurance. Oh, they have variable paid time off.
Yeah.
And they can see that handbook and see the policy in print. Yeah.
Yeah, Ryan, any take? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry,
Yep,
I
yep.
just really want to answer his question. Should we always negotiate? Do companies like it when candidates negotiate? Well, to a degree, yes. You want your employer to negotiate, and we want to know, how can we attract you? How can we recruit you? Because you may have other offers. So yeah, there may be some wiggle room to negotiate. And if you don't negotiate getting in the door, it's unlikely you're going to be able to negotiate once you've got the job and you want more pay or benefits.
I'm with
Got it. Ryan, what are a couple of takeaways real quick, and then we'll tell maybe a quick story if we have one, and smoke a cigar.
Yeah, absolutely.
Teddy,
So
you going to smoke a cigar?
I would say that the interview and hiring process has changed dramatically for both sides of the world. From a company perspective, and I feel that maybe history has shown that the ball has always been in the company's hands, going through that process. And I think the ball is shifting a little bit. And I think the interviewee needs to be interviewing the company more than maybe the company's interviewing the employee. And that's from both aspects. The work-life balance of the future is really the key component when I think about that. And the only way to find employees looking for the right position for them and to retain people in positions is to continue to evolve that work-life balance. And to Debbie's point, you don't want to start out on your heels, start out on your toes, ask the questions, have that open conversation from the beginning. Nobody I've ever heard has said, I can't believe you asked, your potential new job that question. I don't think it's ever happened. You need to interview that company as much as they're interviewing you, and ask for internal references. Talk to people that work there. The last thing you want to do is to put blinders on and not think through that. So really take the time on both sides of the table to analyze that process and ask the right questions, because you're going to build a better partnership and relationship with your employees and your internal group for the long haul.
I think we're just about at the end of the road. Debi Reynolds, thank you for joining us, and Ryan Wilcox, both of Marsh McLennan Agency, talking about benefits today. We've learned a lot, and we've looked into the crystal ball, and we understand some trends and some things that companies are doing to really look to retain and hire folks. And I'm gathering, and I'll tell a quick story because I'll make it up, Teddy. Throw it to you, story, and we'll talk about a famous person coming up. You guys thought you were famous. You got to hear who's coming up next week, because he's a famous guy. Anyway, I think back in the day, that was benefits. Maybe I just didn't have any leverage. I don't know. I just didn't really bring it up. It was not a big deal. It's just whatever it is, it is. So where do I sign? Let me start. So I think we're seeing more of a bit of a shift, and perhaps that shift will continue. But if I'm a worker, make hay with the sunshines and get out. If now's the time to do it, get out and do it. And if you need help, reach out to me at Goodwill. Teddy, I'll throw it to you to take us home. Thanks again, guys, for joining us. Just hang around for just a minute. What you got?
Thank you very much. Hey, here's a quick story. A friend of mine a few years ago, probably about 4 or 5 years ago, executive in an organization in downtown DC. And he was thinking about, should he retire or not? And he was thinking about retiring early. And he said, I don't know, I got to figure out this cost benefit analysis of me keep working or go ahead and retire. And he did this analysis of the benefits he got. And he also did the analysis of the cost to him to go to work. And here's the things he looked at. 30,000 miles a year just to drive to the office, 300 hours in the car just to drive. Actually, no, it was 600 hours in the car because it was back and forth, 600 hours in the car every year, back and forth. He also had to buy 4 new suits every year. That was his policy. He bought a suit every quarter. And you all know the cost of suits. They don't have to be, they're not normally cheap. He had to buy 2 new pairs of shoes every year. That was his plan. He bought 2 new pairs of dress shoes. He also worked in downtown DC, and anybody who's worked in downtown DC knows that lunches and dinners are expensive.
Parking too.
He did that, and then he had corporate parking and a company car. But he did that analysis. You got to look at the cost benefit of the job. What are the benefits they offer you? What's the total compensation they offer you? And what's the cost for you to do that? And when you look at that, you'll make a decision. You need to do that with every position. You'll make a determination. Do I take this job or leave this job? So Ryan, Debbie, thank you very much for coming in today. I really appreciate it. Next week, we have Jeff Smith. And anybody who doesn't know the name Jeff Smith or the name Smitty or the brand Smitty's Notes, if you don't know those, you need to go Google Smitty's Notes. Google Jeffrey Smith. Jeff's going to be on the show next week in the conversation, sort of relevant to what I just talked about. The conversation is about quit or keep going. That's all I'm going to leave you with that. I promise you it'll be a great conversation. Again, you're on Lunch Conversations of Randy and Teddy. Debbie and Ryan, thank you very much for joining us. Randy, I'll talk to you later, buddy. See you everybody later.
See you now.
Thanks, everybody.